Hello book lovers, and welcome back or welcome to Nat Cat's Bookish Cafe. Today I am here to see if I was correct in my 5-star predictions. Alright guys, so back in February of 2023, over a year ago, I made a list of 5 books that I think will be 5 stars. And I have finally, this month, read the last one on this list. So it definitely took me a long time to get to all of these books. It's honestly a little bit ridiculous. If you want to see why I chose these books, I will go ahead and link that video up above and down below. But today I will be going through what I thought of these books, if I was correct in thinking they were a 5-star, or if I was a little off base. I think the way that I'm going to go through these is to go from my least favorite to my favorite. Starting at the very bottom, we have Wolf Gone Wild by Juliet Cross, and I actually had to go and dig this out of my unhaul pile. Luckily, even though I filmed my unhaul video, I have not yet gone around to actually unhauling most of the books. This book unfortunately ended up only being a 3-star read, and I actually believe that it ended up being one of my most disappointing books of 2023. This is a paranormal romance. I think it's supposed to be more on the cozy side. It is the first book in a companion series where we are following a coven of witch sisters, and we would follow their romance to different paranormal creatures throughout the series. I will not be continuing this series. I did not enjoy this book. In this book, we are dealing with a witch who I believe focuses on curse breaking, and a werewolf who is unable to shift. Because his werewolf is unable to shift, his psyche has started to kind of morph with his werewolves, and he can continuously hear the commentary that his wolf self is making, which is annoying him, and honestly was annoying me as well. I was hoping for some humor in the story that I would enjoy, but unfortunately the humor just didn't land for me, and I ended up just being annoyed for the majority of the story. I also wasn't really invested in the romance at all. I didn't really care about either of the characters. There weren't too many moments where I was like, oh, this is really sweet, or oh, this is like really sexy. I just felt very blasé about everything. I also remember being really annoyed by how forward the author was with kind of hinting, if not outright laying out, who the future couples would be. I thought it was a little bit in your face, almost like she was advertising her other books, which, I mean, I get that you want people to continue the series, but they would continue the series if they enjoyed the first book. So that should be your focus, making this book good. And I personally just did not have a good time with it. So that was definitely very disappointing. I think I was kind of hoping it would be similar to TJ Klune's Green Creek series minus all the grief aspects of it, and that is not at all what I got in this book. All right, up next, I'm gonna admit the next 3 books were all 4 stars. 4 stars is a very common rating for me, so these could occasionally be interchanged. I just kind of decided how I was feeling today. So the next book is going to be Silver Under Nightfall by Rin Chapeko, and this is another paranormal romance, this one featuring vampires, and it is also a polyamorous. This is the first book in a duology. The second book, I think, already came out or is coming out this month. I can't remember. Either way, we are following a character named Remy, and he is a vampire hunter. And one day he starts to notice that there are some mutations to the vampires that he is hunting, and he actually ends up teaming up with a vampire couple to kind of figure out what is going on. And while they are solving this mystery, they are also forming a relationship. I had super high expectations for this book. It was one of my most anticipated releases of whenever the heck this book came out. about 2022. Of course, I didn't end up reading it until 2023 because I suck at reading the books I'm excited to read, apparently. But in the end, I ended up being just a little underwhelmed by the story. I felt like it was a little bit predictable. I thought that there was nothing super new and exciting going on when it came to the plot. I did enjoy the relationship aspect of this story. I think it definitely could have been fleshed out a bit more, but I really did enjoy our three characters. I think it was Song and Zane were the two vampires, and Song especially, I really enjoyed her character. She was a very strong female who really let people know what she was thinking, what she wanted. She is someone who was, I guess you could say, chronically ill. She had a very weak heart, but that did not stop her from fighting for what she believed in. So I really kind of felt like she carried the story a little bit. I did enjoy the tension that was between Remy and Zane, and I kind of wished that we had gotten a bit more of that. But in the end, I thought that it was a decent story, but definitely not worth 5 stars and definitely didn't live up to the hype. I think that the story might be new adult instead of like an adult story. I'm not really sure. There's a part of me that wishes that it was really in the adult genre and that the author had taken everything a step further. So, had a good time with the story. Unfortunately, not what I was hoping for when I spent months and months waiting to pick up this book, which was a bit of a bummer, but I still highly recommend, and I will be reading the second book in the duology, of course. Up next, we have the last book that I read. So the one I just finished a few days ago, the one that took me forever to get to, and that is A Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. Like I said, this one was 4 stars as well, which may seem a little weird because I did enjoy it more than The Martian, and I gave The Martian 4.5 stars when I read it, but I will say that I feel like every year I continue to read more and more books, I am a bit tougher with my rating. So I will say I did enjoy this more than The Martian, despite the fact that it has a lower rating. I will also say that unfortunately, this might be a little depressing, but my grandmother passed away actually on the day that I finished this book, and she was in the hospital for the majority of my time reading this, so it definitely impacted my reading experience. So I just want to throw that out there because obviously things that are going on outside of reading can impact your opinion of certain books. But in this book, we are following a man. He wakes up on a spaceship. He doesn't know who he is. He doesn't know why he's there. He doesn't even really know where he is. And he eventually figures out that he has been tasked to save the world. And while he's out there in space trying to accomplish this, he comes across another being, and the two of them start to work together to accomplish the task of saving their planets because they seem to be suffering from the same issue. The good thing about this book is that it had a lot of humor in it, and despite the fact that my anxiety was a little higher and I was feeling a little sadder than usual, it still managed to make me laugh. So I was definitely glad that I was reading a semi-lighthearted story at this time. There were definitely some intense moments throughout this book for sure. The stakes are incredibly high. We are not only trying to save one planet, we are trying to save 2 planets, so like billions if not trillions of people that we are trying to save. Incredibly high stakes with just 2 people trying to save all those people. They definitely were under pressure, and I did enjoy for the most part the pacing of the story. Sometimes it dragged a little because Andy Weir's writing is very science heavy. And while I felt like I didn't mind that too much in The Martian, I think just because of my emotional state of being, I was just a little too brain tired to really slog through all of it, and it kind of slowed down my pace and enjoyment of this story. So had a good time with it. Just think that maybe some of the science jargon was a little bit too much for me, but otherwise a very interesting read, and I understand why so many people have given this book 5 stars in the past. Book number 4, and the last one that I gave 4 stars, we have A Lady for a Duke by Alexis Hall. This is a historical romance featuring a trans main character. We have a character who was fighting at Waterloo and was presumed to be dead, and they decide to take advantage of this and kind of disappear off the face of the earth and return as their true self as a woman. And they eventually find out that their best friend, who had also been in the war with them, has been suffering a lot from mental health issues as well as a war injury that has been causing him chronic pain. This friend's sister kind of reaches out to let our main character's sister-in-law know that things are not going very well at home, and her sister-in-law asks her to come with her to this house because she thinks that Viola will be able to bring him out of his funk because she knows him so well since they were childhood friends, and obviously a romance develops between the two of them. I really did enjoy this story. I thought the trans representation was really good. I thought that the mental health representation was really good. The PTSD representation was really good. So lots of good things going on throughout the story. The romance was very sweet, very romantic. The reason I couldn't give this 5 stars is because at the end of the day, this book is just too long. This is almost 500 pages, and most romances don't need to be that long. Most of them can probably be around 350 pages, and this book definitely could have cut out like 100 pages or so that the pacing was a little bit better. I also felt like there was a side story revolving around a bit of a rake who was causing issues, and I felt like that was a little bit unnecessary, especially considering how easily it was all resolved. So it felt like the author just felt like they needed to put some sort of other plot aspect into the story, which I felt wasn't necessary. I think considering how much our characters had to work through with their relationship, that it would have been perfectly fine to shorten this book and just focus on the romance. So really do recommend this book, but I will say that at times it did drag just a little, so I could only give it 4 out of 5 stars. All right, and the one book that actually was 5 stars, and it was actually one of my favorite books of 2023, is going to be Everything I Never Told You by Celeste Ng. This is a historical mystery, I guess you could consider it, and we are following a Chinese American family here in 1970, and it is a father, a mother, and their 3 children, and their middle daughter is their favorite. The parents have kind of put all their hopes and dreams on this girl, and one day that all comes crashing down when she is found drowned in the lake. And throughout the story, we're kind of trying to figure out, how did she get to that lake? Did someone kill her? Was it an accident? Did she commit suicide? And we are following this family both after and before the death of this young girl. I absolutely love this story so much. I loved reading from all of the characters' points of view. None of them were exactly likable, but they were very real and well fleshed out. I think that the relationships within the family were really not that great. It was definitely not a stable family situation, which became very obvious after kind of the main pillar of the family, this young girl, suddenly disappears and is no longer part of their life. And we kind of see as they all reflect on what they may have done wrong for her to end up in this situation. And we also get to see as they kind of try to form a new normal within their household. The story felt really well paced. I felt like I never wanted to put down this story. I felt like I enjoyed everyone's point of view. I was never like, oh great, now we're reading from this guy. So it was an overall enjoyable experience. I really enjoyed the ending. It definitely made me shed some tears to figure out what ended up happening to this girl. It was very heartbreaking. And so overall, an incredible view of a family kind of falling apart and putting itself back together. If you haven't read this book, I highly recommend it. I'm not the biggest historical girly, I'm not the biggest literary fiction girly, but this book, the way that it just hooked me, there are a few books that have been able to do it. So really incredible writing and character study throughout this book. So please consider reading if you haven't already. All right, guys, so I would say I'm not that good at picking which books are gonna be at 5 stars. I mean, on the bright side, you know, most of them were over a 4-star rating, which is what I usually aim for. This one I was super duper off. Did not enjoy that whatsoever. Very disappointing. But I mean, at least I got one of them right, so that's something. I will probably do another 5-star prediction video in about a month or so, sometime in May. I don't have time to do it here in April since I'm vlogging every week, but hopefully in the next round I will be a little bit better about choosing which books I think are going to be 5 stars, and hopefully it doesn't take me over a year to actually read them all. But I would love to know if you have read any of these books and if you have given any of them 5 stars, or if you're planning on reading any of them and are hoping for a 5-star read. And as always, guys, thank you so much for supporting my channel by watching my videos, and I hope to see you next time. Bye!